At 04:17 local time, 8 Ukrainian drones were navigating through a Russian river valley at 202. No GPS, no radar emissions, just barometric sensors and preloaded terrain guiding them through the darkness. The mission had gone perfectly for the last 50 kilometers, but that was about to change in ways nobody predicted. Unknown to the traders back in Ukraine, an Mi-24 attack helicopter on an unscheduled patrol had just detected engine noise. The pilot was already turning toward them, weapons high. But the drones weren't alone. Missiles suddenly roared from their launchers, climbing fast and bright. Every Russian radar from Bryansk to Moscow immediately locked onto them, exactly helping the drones do something impossible. The first Neptune climbed to 15,000 feet. Its radar cross-section the size of a small car. No stealth, no subtlety, just here I am.
Smoke was already rising over the Volga region, but nobody knew how it had started. By the time Russian radar operators noticed anything unusual, the Ukrainian drones were already in the air, cutting through the pre-dawn darkness like shadows, with a mission that would leave everyone scrambling. This wasn't a raid anyone expected. It was precision. It was chaos. And it was about to rewrite the rules of engagement in ways no one could predict. At 0354 local time, 3 Ukrainian drones lifted off from a concealed base 120 kilometers west of the Volga oil depot. No GPS, no electronic chatter, just inertial navigation and preloaded terrain maps, guiding them like ghosts over the rolling fields and dense birch forests. Their mission: strike the depot, cripple its storage tanks, and vanish before the Russians even realized what was happening. Each drone was loaded with 50 kilograms of high-explosive payloads, enough to punch through reinforced steel walls, but light enough to maintain near-silent flight. As they crossed the border, Russian early warning radars remained asleep, distracted by routine air traffic and commercial flights that cluttered their screens. The first drone, Drone 1, approached a small tributary leading toward the depot. Its barometric altimeter continuously checked altitude against the terrain database, maintaining 120 m, weaving between forested ridges. Behind it, Drone 2 and Drone 3 mirrored the path, each maintaining staggered formation to minimize radar signature and avoid creating a single large target. Then, unexpectedly, a Russian Mi-28 helicopter patrolled into the sector, engines humming low and blades slicing the air. Its infrared scanner, designed to catch armored vehicles, picked up only a faint signature, a tiny heat blot in the distance. The gunner squinted through the sight, trying to make sense of it as the first drone slipped silently beneath the treetops. The helicopter's pilot nudged the aircraft forward, expecting to catch the intruder easily. But the drones were faster than expected, slipping through the gaps in the sensor array, navigating like submarines using nothing but pressure and memory. Drone 1's forward camera detected the perimeter fence around the depot electric, high tensile, and alarmed. Its onboard processor ran calculations in milliseconds, plotting a climb, a precise arc over the fence, and a dive toward the first fuel tank. The drone's engines hummed, almost imperceptible over the distant hum of the Mi-28 turbines. Drone 2 and Drone 3, trailing 30 meters behind, adjusted their paths using live calculations of Drone 1's movements, keeping perfect formation while avoiding power lines, pipelines, and surveillance towers. The first drone reached the depot's southern storage tank. Its payload bay opened, and 2 explosive charges dropped with surgical accuracy onto the tank roof. One charge detonated on impact, tearing through the steel dome and igniting the fuel inside. Flames erupted, leaping 15 meters high, reflected in the early morning haze. Smoke curled skyward, dark and oily, carrying the unmistakable smell of petroleum. The Russians' automated sensors triggered alarms instantly, but only briefly. They scanned for fast-moving aircraft, seeing only the ghosts of 3 drones that had already vanished from radar detection. Meanwhile, Drone 2 was weaving toward the northern section of the depot. Its acoustic sensors picked up distant rotor noise from the Mi-28, now circling back after losing visual on Drone 1. The drone's processor calculated trajectories to avoid the helicopter's line of fire, adjusting altitude by fractions of a meter every tenth of a second. It released its payload over another storage tank, igniting a secondary fire that spread across the compound. Drone 3 executed a diversion, flying close to a radar antenna and triggering false returns. Russian operators, reacting to the apparent threat, shifted attention away from the real attack focusing on a phantom moving too fast to track. Within 90 seconds, two separate tanks were fully ablaze. The depot's fire suppression systems activated automatically, hissing foam and chemical retardants across the metal surfaces, but it was too late. Drone 1 circled back to rendezvous with Drone 3, while Drone 2 maintained low cover over a drainage canal, avoiding detection. Russian air defense operators had scrambled a Su-35 for intercept, but by the time it reached the area, the drones were already halfway to the forested ridge, invisible to both radar and visual detection. Their infrared signature masked by the burning depot, they blended perfectly into the chaos. Back at the depot, the first explosion had set off a chain reaction. Secondary fires erupted as pipelines ruptured under heat stress. Valves blew, sending columns of flame into the sky. Smoke turned orange with molten droplets of fuel coating nearby structures with black soot. Russian personnel on the ground panicked, trying to access fire suppression stations while simultaneously reporting contacts to sector command. The math was simple. 3 fast-moving targets, approaching from multiple vectors, each with unpredictable flight paths. The defensive systems could track dozens of conventional aircraft, but these drones were not conventional. Drone 3 triggered its final maneuver, ascending to 200 m for a brief radar pickup, a calculated exposure to draw attention, while drones 1 and 2 continued low-level navigation through ravines. Every Russian operator, every radar screen, every alert system screamed warnings at once. But the Ukrainians had engineered this moment perfectly. One drone was meant to be noticed, another to be hidden. Misleading, distracting. The Mi-28 helicopter, now within 5 kilometers, was seeing ghosts. Sudden blips, shadows moving in the wrong direction. Sensors misreading speed and altitude. The pilot fired at one phantom target, expending multiple rounds of 30 mm cannon fire on nothing more than a heat distortion and a shifting shadow. Drone 1 and Drone 2 were already on their egress paths, skimming treetops, hugging the terrain contours. They avoided all major detection zones, using terrain masking to remain invisible. Drone 3, acting as the final distraction, zipped toward the depot from the north, simulating a return attack to hold Russian operators' focus. By the time the first drone reached extraction coordinates, the depot was engulfed in flames, smoke columns visible for 30 kilometers. Russian air defenses had expended ammunition, scrambled aircraft, and misallocated attention, all while 3 small, nearly silent drones had completed their mission and vanished. And then it happened, something the Russians weren't prepared for: a sudden secondary explosion from an underground storage tank. The result of heat transfer and fuel vapor ignition rocked the northern perimeter. Windows shattered kilometers away. The Mi-28 helicopter was buffeted by shockwaves, nearly losing rotor stability. Russian operators, celebrating earlier successful tracking of phantom targets, suddenly realized the scale of the strike. The drones weren't just attacking. They had orchestrated a precise, multi-vector chaos operation, striking hard, vanishing, and leaving devastation that no conventional response could immediately contain. By 0408, 10 minutes after takeoff, the drones were already over neutral territory, engines humming quietly under tree cover. Back at Ukrainian command, operators monitored telemetry feeds. All drones safe, mission accomplished, objectives destroyed. Analysts quickly noted Russian overreaction. Multiple air defense units distracted, several interceptor missiles fired at non-threats, personnel misallocated, and key assets like fire suppression teams delayed or immobilized. The strike had been surgical, efficient, and devastating, and it had left the Russians with more questions than